Well, the key word there is creating the culture, because most schools, we discovered recently with walkthroughs, they really don't have a very strong idea of the culture in their building that they're going to really need to manipulate well and use in a very positive way to reach their reading goals. So what we learned from walkthroughs was that having people come together in a team to look at what is going on a day certain in their own building, then is a wonderful springboard to come back with rich discussions about, oh wow, this was so good or so wonderful, or I was really disappointed that we didn't have but one teacher out of a team or a grade or whatever that was doing what we thought they ought to be doing after a long discussion. So then it's an easy transition to say, okay, let's talk about what your goals in reading will be for this year. Let's talk about how far off the mark of what we think ought to be going on in those classrooms, so that we have some idea of what is our common vision for what we ought to be doing to prepare to have really strong achievement in this building. That's the building bridge piece. Then we have to make sure that that building culture and the district culture, we've learned recently that if the superintendent is really into the instructional leadership piece and holding schools accountable for raising their test scores in reading, there can be as much as a 10% jump just with that one factor. It's really important then that we team together with the district support that is there, whether that's the Title I federal programs person, that person should be on board, the ESE people should be on board, the ESLL or whatever you call second language learners in your district, that all of those people too have to be part of that culture changing, that expectations of growth at phenomenal speed, so that the district people feel like that they are key players in monitoring and supporting what is going on at that school. Now, obviously, it's very important for the principal, assistant principal, reading coach, maybe other key teacher leaders at different grade levels or different teams, would also be part of kind of an expanded way of setting those reading goals, everybody publishing them. So everybody in the building, parents know that support that school, the district knows. So there can be that we're coming together to make a big difference as the community, the culture in this building supports achievement. Right, Literacy First has always required a site analysis. It's about 5 or 6 sheets of paper, really depends on whether it's elementary or secondary. And truly, when schools are first coming into Literacy First, they kind of see it as a really big job because it asks for some specific information. What we really want to do with that, the purpose of that, is so that you have a baseline of the year before Literacy First came. So it's capturing, or maybe even recapturing, data from that previous year before Literacy First begins in a building. It might be percent of free and reduced lunch, it might be the number of teachers who leave typically after a year, so teacher turnover is an important part of it, but lots of detailed information, much of which they have captured now on their computers and pretty easily can get it onto the forms that we're asking. But it really is so that we know where the playing field starts by looking at what was student achievement, what was going on in that building that would be detrimental to building culture toward strong student achievement. Teacher turnover would be a huge piece of that. So would changing the principal or assistant principal or reading coach really often. But those are the kinds of pieces of information and lots of other data kinds of things so that we would know test scores, so that we have then something against which to compare when the first year with Literacy First is over. How well did we do? Well, we did this well. Well, how about year 2 or year 3 or year 5 or year 7, so that you still are seeing growth and the whole school publishing that. We want it by grade level or by team. We want it to be celebrated often. We want it to be supported so that the district is aware of things that are really going well. So all of those things really stem from or jump from the fact that we have captured in stone, as it were, what happened before Literacy First came. So then we have at least a point from which we can measure progress from there forward. I think it's important that we look at PDI, Professional Development Institute / Literacy First, the company, and what the company brings to that school situation, and what role they have for each other. Not often do we think about, beyond sending a consultant, what has Literacy First done Literacy First has prepared, of course, wonderful materials and trained consultants and selected one based on what the salesperson has been able to gather when they were having those rich conversations with those leadership teams in those buildings when they were still at the courting stage of the commitment to be a Literacy First school. What that lets us know is how important is it that that salesperson and the consultant, when the consultant is selected, are already showing their competence so that the credibility of Literacy First as an entity with all of its pieces and parts that we have there to support schools, that it's already believable, that they're already beginning to be the buds of relationships. As a salesperson, I think it's really important that I bring to my very first contact, whether that's by phone or email, that Literacy First message, that PDI message that we want to be your external partner. We want to be that person who can help you get your reading scores where you will be happy with them. And do that in little increments over time so that years from now you'll be able to look back and see tremendous growth. It takes a while to grow the culture to support that. So you look at who are the players and how are they going to facilitate working together, each bringing their own expertise to make that happen. So, past the sales team, there's that consultant who immediately upon being assigned by the people at PDI decide that I'm going to get to know these people, I'm going to make phone calls, I'm going to send emails, I'm going to tell them about me and my experience with Literacy First, just to begin the magic of a multi-year relationship. And then once that person has actually gone to that school, walked that building, sat with the leadership team, and by leadership team I mean it certainly would be the principal, unless it's a very, very, very large secondary school that might have the instructional leader be one of the assistant principals who really spends a lot of time then working with the instructional piece. But most often, it's the principal, those district people that we've already met, that as soon as the consultant is on the ground, they are making appointments or breakfast meetings or whatever to get to know the district folks that were going to help support the Literacy First initiative in that building. Over time, you're also trying to grow teacher leaders, because one thing we want to do after 3 years is have left a complete set of competence where we have gone so that those people can go forward with Literacy First without needing us to be there, unless they choose to have us come back, for a booster shot of one thing or another. So those are the at least beginnings. Over time, then there is that training that the consultants deliver and answer questions and support. There are all of the emails and phone calls back and forth with the LRS and principal, setting up what is going to happen at the next training day or coaching day. And the more they communicate, we know from experience, the more they are prepared to meet and work as a team when that consultant gets there again, where the principal or LRS or SIS is reporting back to that consultant with what is happening in between visits, so that it's a really a long bridge of communication back and forth for at least 3 years, that we're there leading them at first and then finally getting out of the way and watching them and just coaching, because they're just about to be self-sufficient over time without us. That's our job, is to let them take the initiative and to not be the superstar, and to go over what are the to-do things that each entity has to work on between those visits, and keep that line of communication open. The consultant also, once he or she goes home, does a summary of the bullets that were covered in the leadership meetings that we conduct on every single coaching day. Maybe even a reminder of something to do that we agreed we were going to do based on training. Look at goal sheets, just the monitoring pieces to keep them excited and feeling good about that they're on the right track, until they feel really solidly capable of making those decisions at the tail end of that 3rd year with little support, just cheerleading from then on. So what I know from experience, what lots of other Literacy First consultants know from working at schools, what happens is you make friends for a lifetime. They love you because you have helped them grow their expertise, and they're feeling good about what they now can do for kids and how kids can perform, how students can excel because of what they have the skill set to provide. So it may be longer than 3 years. It may even be a lifetime friendship.